Our next big keynote speaker is a soldier. Now, we're all soldiers if we've received the sacrament of confirmation, right? That's how we understand it. It's the Holy Spirit's mark on us, the indelible mark that says, I have stamped my seal of approval upon you, child or daughter, son or daughter of God, and you are now tasked with the mission of proclaiming the truth, of confessing the wonders of God. Now, there are also soldiers who have served in our nation's armed forces. We've had a few up here already. But there's a special man who is a 3-star general, and he was also the chief advisor of the President of the United States. But those are just in some ways secondary things. Because what I am most grateful to him today for, and I've gotten to know him well, he's the senior advisor to Catholics for Catholics, is I am grateful for the example that he has shown in not giving up and understanding, too, that if we're going to win, because our country's in serious danger, it is. I mean, look at the fact that we even have a rally about deciding whether, parents have rights over their kids or not. Just show what this is. So we have that warrior for the cause. I'm grateful. He's also a fellow Catholic. And he also prays the rosary every day, which we're going to do later. So I would like to welcome my friend and my hero, General Michael Flynn. Yep, definitely.
Please get it out. Get it out. My mom taught me sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me. Right? Get it out. One more time. I love it. I love it. Okay. I'm going to do this today because this is where our nation is at. I love it. I love it. I just love it. That's a train that they missed, okay? So I have a size 12 shoe. Half of my feet are off the edge of this platform up here, okay? And I'm going to stand here for the time that I have allotted because this is where our nation is at. Okay, we are at the edge of a cliff. Actually, I'm only doing that because if I jump down, I'd be in the valley of the shadow of death, and I don't want to get into that. But actually, the United States of America is living in Psalm 23, a place that I have been. Okay? And that place that I have been, there's 2 lights out of that valley. 2 lights. One light is that temptation that many politicians get. And those politicians, they get tempted by money, power, more money, more power. And it's incredible. I love it. I love it. That's called the First Amendment, right? It's called the First Amendment. One of the incredible, and if you have time, you can go look at the lawsuit, my lawsuit that's against the Department of Justice. It'll take probably half the rest of my lifetime to fight it, but it's the lawsuit against the entirety of the Department of Justice and the executive office of the president under President Obama. And yeah, and if you want to read some really good stuff, you go read that filing. The 5th, I always tell people this because the 5th of November of 2017, 5 November 2017, President Obama, Vice President Biden, the Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates, the National Security Advisor Susan Rice, the head of the CIA, John Brennan, the director of national intelligence at the time, Jim Clapper, they stood in that office, the Oval Office, and they conspired to get rid of me. They conspired to get rid of me, to use the full weight of the United States of America to get rid of me. And the rest is history, because here I am, right? Isaiah 6:8. I want to thank all of the veterans. I want to thank all of the law enforcement professionals that we have here. But me standing here today, like I'm standing with half of my body hanging off the edge of this dais up here, is a metaphor for where the United States of America is at right now. We are about 15 months away maybe, 2024. And I can't stand up here and tell you. I think only God knows, like we say, only God knows. Only God knows the outcome of this amendment that's about to come in front of your legislature. Really. We can't predict what they're going to do. But only God knows what's going to happen in 2024. But I know where our country is at. I know what it's going to take. And for anybody that's been following me or listening to me, and I use the phrase local action equals a national impact. Local action has a national impact. And what does that mean? That means now every single American has to stand up, step up, and speak up. You have to repurpose your life. I'm going to stand up here and talk for a few minutes. You had all these great speakers. You're going to have Jim Caviezel come up here in a little bit, and we're going to say things to you to motivate you. And we're hoping to motivate your politicians, who they should be filling up these seats right here. All these, and I love you people, because I met some of you, but all these muckety mucks, right? All these people, right? I mean, but the problem, how we got here, and this goes back a long way, is because we've been apathetic and we've been lazy. Okay? Now, there's people out here, there's people that you'll see coming up, and there's definitely people out here that have gotten involved in executive committees and committeemen and committeewomen and right-to-life groups. I marched with my mom in 1974 in Washington, D.C. 1974 tells you how long I've been around. But it took us too long. It took us too long. And now, I mean, what Chloe was up here talking about, I mean, where did we lose our common sense? Why do we allow critical race theory? Why, and Black Lives Matter, I always say Black Lives Matter has nothing to do with color. It has everything to do with a political ideology called Marxism. That's what it is. Please debate me on it, okay? You don't get to where I got in my life, particularly in my military life, nor to be the national security advisor to a president of the United States of America, because somebody sprinkled fairy dust on you and poof, you're suddenly a general, or poof, you're suddenly the national security advisor to the president of the United States. It takes a lot of work. And like when everybody knows the phrase, freedom is not free, right? Yeah, no. Freedom is hard. Freedom is hard. Freedom is very, very hard. It requires massive sacrifice. Psalm 23, for those that don't know it, go look it up. Yea, that I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, because thou art with me. And it goes on and on. And we are in that valley. There are two lights. I found the right light. I found the light that allowed me to come out. And you know how I found it? And there's people in here, and I wish I could hug you. There's people in this audience that prayed. There's people in this audience that prayed. And I'm a warrior. I'm a soldier. And you know what the most powerful weapon system known to man is? Prayer. Prayer. So people prayed. And I went down that valley, and I was in the valley, folks. I mean, talk about the entirety of the United States government standing against you on both sides, all sides, right? I'm not a politician. Not a politician. I got into it because I love this country. And I tell people, You don't go to war because you hate your enemies. You go to war because you love your country. And this is, there are spiritual, intellectual, emotional, and physical components of what it is that we're facing. So I found that right light, because the other way is corruption and the things that they're trying to tempt you with. Because the sobering reality is that evil exists. So local action. All you people that are involved in these local groups, you're serving. People come up to me all the time and they tell me, thank you for your service. And they give me some excuse about how they're not serving or how they didn't serve in the military or why they didn't serve in the military. I'm like, I always tell them, stop. How are you serving now? How are you serving now? How are you serving your family, your community? I love these people. I'm telling you, I love them. I'd go take a bullet for them. I would. And I did for almost 35 years of my life. Okay? For that right. And I looked and I took a peek. Most of them are probably the age of my grandchildren, which tells you everything you need to know. Okay? Local action. You have got to repurpose your life. And I'm looking out and I see a lot of young faces, young kids, which is wonderful. But it's my generation. It's my generation. My father and my mother are both deceased. God love them. God rest in peace. My father was a World War II and a Korean War veteran. He retired from the Army as a sergeant. Okay, I got 9 brothers and sisters. I'm raised as an Irish Catholic kid. Tough family. My father was a tough Irishman. He taught us, but he taught us the golden rule. He taught us treat others like you like to be treated. My mom taught us to be lifelong learners. Never stop learning. So I'm looking at people that are in my age category, which is sort of like if you break the country down into 3 generations, my generation, my children's generation, and my grandchildren's generation. I'm not quite there for great-grandkids yet, but there might be some in here. So my generation, which is the top 3rd generation, right? It's the older generation. We can't rely on the kids that we have, the babies that they have. They can't do it. You know why they can't do it? They can't do it because they're working their tails off. Most of them, there's a lot of young women out there that are single moms, taking care of a couple of kids, trying to raise their children. All these things. That generation is working their tails off. Babies, they can't do it, obviously. So my generation, and when I look around, and now this is my counsel to you. When you leave here today, after listening to all this wonderful stuff, when you leave here today, whether it sinks in tonight or tomorrow or the next couple of days, or maybe it takes you a little bit longer to let it sink in, I want you to think about what is your purpose in life. What is your purpose in life? My purpose in life when I joined the United States Army was to serve my country. And I was willing to go anywhere. I was in all these great units. I served all over 6 continents. I fought 5 years in combat. Okay? So I know what it is to see sacrifice, and I know what it is to embrace it. But I come back home, right? I come here, and everybody knows what I'm talking about. Everybody sees what's happening to our country if you're paying the least bit of attention. I mean, when do we talk about drag queen hour? Right? You can't show some of these books that are in our public school system at a school board hearing anywhere in this country because they're too pornographic. This business that they're talking about with the drugs, right? So these people are smart. They're going to figure out ways. If they don't pass this, they're going to figure out a way to come in through the healthcare system. Sacrifice is something that as an American citizen, you will always have to do if you love your liberties. You'll always have to do it. Now, I'll kind of come to a close because our founders, our great founders, the wisdom of our founders, because we're sort of living by the threads of our Constitution right now, and I don't use that word imprecisely when I say threads of our Constitution. Our founders were brilliant, and they gave us 3 things. among all the other stuff that's in there, all the other ability to peaceably protest, right? The ability to practice whatever faith you want to practice. They gave us 3 things. They started when they all gathered, and if you ever take some time to read the Federalist Papers or read some of the letters from the founders to their wives, it's fascinating history. And they tell the story of how they got to where we are today. And when you study that kind of stuff and you look at that kind of stuff, you say to yourself, wow, how smart, how visionary were they to allow me to go through the persecution and the hell that I went through to stand here today. They were visionary to allow that. But they gave us 3 things. And they started with individuals. They didn't start at Washington, D.C. and go, well, we're going to make a big old government, overreaching government with a lot of problems. In fact, read the Declaration of Independence. It'll tell you everything you need to know. They gave us 3 things. And the first thing is what? And here we are. Here we are. We're talking about life, right? For me, like them, they're going to try to argue not to say life, but they're all alive. I mean, give me, I could go Irish, but give me a break, right? I mean, life, it's powerful, it's true, it's honest, it's light. And if you've met any child, if you've met any child that's out there, and I love children, and that father's pulling his kid over the rail. I mean, they're so innocent, and they hate that. They hate that innocence because that's what drives, and I'm going to talk about my generation, that's what drives my generation, to cherish those children and to stand and fight for them. Life. The founders gave that to us. So whether your politicians hear me or not, it's in God's hands. The second thing that they gave us was liberty. Liberty, right? The ability to live in a free country. Because I'll tell you what they can take my freedom, and they tried hard, but they couldn't take my faith. They could not take my faith, right? That's why I say the power of prayer. Liberty, life, liberty. And then the final thing is, of course, the pursuit of happiness. But they argued about that. They argued about property, right? They argued about whether or not, well, what's the right phrase? And then they're all, I mean, honestly, you look at some of their letters, it's fascinating stuff, where they say, well, geez, we're happy. I mean, there's some joking in these guys, right? There's a lightness in the room when they're talking about this stuff, and they're talking about, geez, I'll be happy when this is over. Seriously. And they're talking about the economy and prosperity and property. But they said, why don't we just make it happiness? Right? Those people are happy. They're happy. I mean, they're happy over there. Now I say that tongue-in-cheek because I haven't talked to them. But boy, if they're out here on a hot day like that going blah, 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 they must be happy. Like, I can't imagine any other way that they'd be. I can't imagine. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. From that foundation, like I'm standing up here, they then decided how to move forward on creating the Constitution of the United States. And it's massively, massively important. The very first thing that they started with was life. And for them, like you, to me, it starts at the moment of conception. Because, and why do I say that? I don't say that as I honestly don't say that to get applause. I say that because that's science. That's the reason. That's the reason. Okay, faith and reason. Faith and reason. There's a beautiful, I think it's the Sistine Chapel, 2 angels up in the sky, and they're reaching out. They're pointing to each other. They're pointing to each other. Ever seen that? Look it up. Top of the Sistine Chapel. It's beautiful. And the fingers don't touch. They don't touch. Because to me, the way I learned it was one represents faith and the other represents reason. Because there are things that we know in life that's just, it's the science of life. And then we just have to have faith, like my wife and I had and still have. We have faith. We had faith in you. We had faith in your common sense. And I have faith, and it remains very strong. I have faith in America's common sense. Because if we just use common sense, that gut feel or a woman's intuition, the hair on the back of your neck goes up, if we just use good God-given common sense, we'll figure out how to repurpose our lives coming out of here today, whether it's get on the phone or get involved in something in your community, and we'll be a much better country. And it's going to require sacrifice. It's going to require sacrifice. Okay? So all I want to do is say I'm totally, incredibly honored to be here. It's amazing how many of you showed up. We were told it was going to rain today. It's beautiful here in Cincinnati, or just outside Cincinnati here. I love it. I love you. I love you. I love you. And I want to tell you, I say it because this came to me, and I'm going to get the hook here in a minute. We say in my family, we're an Irish clan. We say, fight like a Flynn. Fight like a Flynn. Okay? And I'm going to tell you, we will never quit. We will never stop. We will never stop fighting for you. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you very much.